The call of Everest before the world awakens, before the first footsteps touch the snow. High above the clouds, where the air grows thin and time seems to slow, a mountain rises beyond all others. Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth, it stands unmoving, untouched by borders, watching centuries pass beneath its shadow. To science, Everest is a number, 8,848.86 meters above sea level. But to humanity, it is something far greater. It is a dream, a challenge, a question without an easy answer. In Nepal, this mountain is called Sagarmatha, the goddess of the sky. In Tibet, it is known as Chamalungma, the mother goddess of the world. These names were not given in conquest, but in reverence. For the people who live in its shadow, Everest is not something to be conquered. It is something to be respected. Something alive. And yet, year after year, people come. They leave behind comfort and certainty, traveling thousands of miles toward cold, wind, and uncertainty. They come knowing the risks, the storms that arrive without warning, the cold that freezes breath in seconds, the air that slowly disappears with every step upward. This mountain offers no mercy, no guarantees, only truth. Up here, strength is tested, ego is stripped away, and every decision matters. So why do people risk everything to be here? Some come to test the limits of the human body. Some come searching for meaning. Some come chasing a dream they have carried their entire lives. And some come simply to stand in the presence of something greater than themselves. As the sun rises, Everest casts its shadow across the valleys below, a silent reminder of its scale and our own smallness. This is not just a mountain, it is a force of nature, a spiritual symbol, a mirror reflecting humanity's desire to climb higher, to go further, to understand who we are. This is the call of Everest. Understanding Everest and the Himalayas, narrative the story of Mount Everest begins long before humans ever set eyes upon it. It begins deep within the Earth itself. Around 50 million years ago, the Indian tectonic plate began a slow but unstoppable collision with the Eurasian plate. Unlike other collisions that formed volcanic mountains, this impact had no release. The land had nowhere to go, except upward. Over millions of years, this immense pressure folded and lifted the Earth's crust, giving birth to the Himalayan mountain range, the youngest and tallest mountains on the planet. And at its highest point stands Mount Everest. Rising to a height of 8,848.86 meters, Everest is officially the highest mountain above sea level on Earth. Its summit lies at approximately 27.9881 degrees north latitude and 86.9250 degrees east longitude, straddling the border between Nepal and Tibet. Even today, Everest continues to grow by a few millimeters each year, as the tectonic plates beneath it remain in motion. But Everest is not a single peak standing alone. It is part of a vast interconnected system of mountains shaped by altitude, climate, and extreme conditions. As elevation increases, Everest passes through distinct climate zones. At lower altitudes, temperate forests and alpine meadows support life. Above this lies the subalpine and alpine zone, where vegetation thins and temperatures drop sharply. Higher still is the nival zone, dominated by permanent snow and ice. Beyond 8,000 meters, climbers enter the infamous death zone, where oxygen levels fall to 1/3 of what the human body requires to survive. Surrounding Everest are some of the most iconic peaks in the world. To the south rises Lhotse, the fourth highest mountain on Earth, sharing much of Everest's climbing route. Nearby stands Nuptse, a steep, jagged wall of rock and ice that forms a dramatic barrier to the western Khumbu. Further away, the elegant pyramid of Amadablam dominates the skyline, revered as one of the most beautiful mountains in the Himalayas. To the east towers Makalu, the fifth highest mountain in the world, isolated, massive, and brutally difficult to climb. Together, these peaks form a natural cathedral of stone and ice, a reminder that Everest is not just a summit, but the crown of an entire mountain kingdom shaped by time, pressure, and the restless forces of the Earth. Preparations for the Everest trek, an expedition to Mount Everest, does not begin on the mountain. It begins months, sometimes years, before the first step is taken toward the Himalayas. Preparing for the Everest trek demands a rare combination of physical strength, technical skill, and mental resilience. The mountain does not tolerate shortcuts, and every weakness is exposed at altitude. A. Physical preparation. Physical training typically begins 6 to 12 months before the journey. Endurance is the foundation. Long-distance hiking, stair climbing with weighted packs, and multi-day treks are essential to prepare the body for sustained effort in thin air. Cardiovascular conditioning plays a critical role. Activities such as running, cycling, swimming, and high-intensity interval training strengthen the heart and lungs, increasing the body's ability to transport oxygen efficiently. Alongside cardio, strength training focuses on legs, core, and upper body, building the power needed to navigate steep ascents, unstable terrain, and heavy loads. Altitude conditioning is equally important. Whenever possible, trekkers train at high elevations or use simulated altitude environments to help the body adapt to reduced oxygen levels. This gradual exposure reduces the risk of altitude-related illnesses during the expedition. Just as vital is mental resilience. The Everest trek tests patience, discipline, and emotional control. Isolation, extreme cold, exhaustion, and uncertainty require a mindset capable of enduring discomfort and making calm decisions under PRESSUREB. Technical training. Beyond fitness, Everest demands technical competence. Trekkers must learn ice axe handling, using it for balance, self-arrest, and controlled movement on icy slopes. Crampon walking is essential for safely crossing glaciers and hard-packed snow, where a single misstep can be dangerous. Rope safety training teaches how to move securely while roped to a team, manage crevasse risks, and respond during emergencies. One of the most intimidating skills is ladder crossing, especially in areas like the Khumbu Icefall, where ladders span deep, shifting crevasses. These techniques are practiced repeatedly until movement becomes instinctive. See permits and logistics. Preparation also involves complex logistics. Trekkers must secure official trekking permits from Nepali authorities. For climbers attempting the summit, specialized climbing permits are mandatory and tightly regulated. Comprehensive insurance and evacuation coverage is non-negotiable. This includes high-altitude medical care and helicopter evacuation, which can mean the difference between survival and tragedy. On Everest, preparation is not optional, it is survival. The mountain rewards those who respect its demands long before they ever reach its slopes. Safety training and risk awareness. On Mount Everest, danger is not sudden, it is constant. Every step taken at high altitude carries risk, and survival depends not on strength alone, but on knowledge, discipline, and preparation. Safety training is the invisible lifeline that allows climbers and trekkers to operate in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Major risks covered. The most common and dangerous threat on Everest is altitude sickness. As elevation increases, oxygen levels drop sharply, placing immense strain on the human body. Acute mountain sickness, AMAS, can cause headaches, nausea, and fatigue. If ignored, it can progress into high-altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE, where fluid fills the lungs, or high-altitude cerebral edema, HACE, where swelling of the brain leads to confusion, loss of coordination, and death. Early recognition is critical. Beyond altitude, the mountain itself is unstable. Avalanches can occur without warning, triggered by weather changes, ice movement, or even human activity. Entire routes can vanish in seconds. Hidden beneath snowfields lie crevasses, deep fractures, and glaciers, often concealed by fragile snow bridges. A single misstep can result in a fall hundreds of feet into darkness. Everest's extreme weather adds another layer of danger. Winds can exceed hurricane force. Temperatures can plunge below -40 degrees Celsius, and storms can trap climbers for days. Exposure to such conditions leads quickly to frostbite and hypothermia, where tissue freezes and body temperature drops to life-threatening levels. Safety training. To manage these risks, climbers follow strict safety protocols. A carefully planned acclimatization strategy allows the body time to adapt to thinning air. Climbers ascend gradually, rest at set elevations, and descend when symptoms appear. This slow process saves lives. The buddy system ensures no one moves alone. Partners constantly monitor each other for signs of fatigue, confusion, or illness, often noticing danger before the individual does. At higher altitudes, supplemental oxygen becomes essential. Training includes correct usage, flow regulation, mask fitting, and emergency backup procedures. Finally, climbers are trained in emergency signals radio communication, hand signals, and distress protocols, allowing rapid response during accidents or sudden weather changes. On Everest, safety is not a single decision. It is a continuous awareness that determines who returns and who does not. Do's and don'ts checklist. Success on the Everest trek depends as much on discipline as it does on strength. Following essential do's and don'ts can significantly reduce risk and improve safety in extreme altitude environments. Do acclimatize slowly. Allow the body time to adjust to decreasing oxygen levels. Gradual ascent and planned rest days are critical in preventing altitude-related illnesses. Do stay hydrated. Cold and altitude accelerate dehydration. Drinking sufficient water helps maintain energy levels and reduces the risk of altitude sickness. Do respect Sherpas and local communities. Their knowledge, experience, and culture are central to Himalayan travel. Respect for local traditions and guidance is both ethical and essential. Do follow weather forecasts. Weather in the Himalayas can change rapidly. Decisions should always be guided by the latest forecasts and expert advice. Do carry backup oxygen and power. Redundancy can save lives when primary systems fail. At the same time, certain mistakes must be avoided. Don't ignore symptoms. Headaches, dizziness, or confusion are warning signs. Never push through them. Don't rush the ascent. Speed increases danger and reduces acclimatization. Don't litter or damage sacred sites. The mountains are both a natural and spiritual heritage. Don't trek alone. Always stay within a group or buddy system. Don't underestimate the weather. On Everest, nature always has the final say. Security and emergency planning on Mount Everest. Careful planning does not eliminate danger, but it creates a margin for survival. In an environment where help can be hours or days away, security and emergency preparedness are as vital as physical strength. Unexpected situations are an unavoidable reality in the Himalayas. Sudden storms can descend without warning, grounding helicopters and forcing teams to shelter in place for extended periods. High winds, whiteouts, and heavy snowfall can make even familiar routes unrecognizable. Medical emergencies pose another serious challenge. Altitude illness, injuries from falls, frostbite, and exhaustion may escalate rapidly, requiring immediate intervention. In such cases, time and communication are critical. Lost communication is a constant risk in remote mountain regions. Mobile networks are unreliable, and harsh weather can disable electronic devices, leaving teams isolated. Without proper backups, coordination becomes nearly impossible. External factors also play a role. Political instability, airspace restrictions, or airstrip closures, particularly at high-altitude airports, can delay evacuations and resupply missions, disrupting carefully planned itineraries. To manage these risks, strict security measures are put in place. Satellite phones provide reliable long-range communication when traditional networks fail. GPS trackers allow teams to monitor location in real time, enabling faster response in case of emergency. Rescue coordination, often involving high-altitude helicopter operations, is prearranged with specialized rescue services. Pilots trained for thin air flying can evacuate injured climbers from lower camps when weather permits. Finally, detailed evacuation plans are prepared before the trek begins. These plans identify safe descent routes, emergency shelters, medical facilities, and decision points for retreat. On Everest, emergencies are not managed in the moment, they are anticipated in advance. Because in the world's highest mountains, preparation is the difference between rescue and tragedy. Journey begins, Kathmandu to Pokhara. Every journey to Everest begins far from snow and ice, in the vibrant streets of Kathmandu. Nepal's capital is a living blend of history, spirituality, and controlled chaos. Ancient temples rise beside crowded alleyways, prayer flags stretch across narrow streets, and the sound of bells and chants fills the air. For trekkers, Kathmandu is both a cultural introduction and a logistical starting point. In the bustling gear markets of Thamel, final preparations take place. Shops overflow with trekking equipment, boots, down jackets, ropes, and oxygen accessories. Last-minute adjustments are made, and missing essentials are replaced. Nearby, expedition teams gather for pre-trek briefings, reviewing routes, weather expectations, safety protocols, and emergency plans. These meetings mark the mental shift from traveler to mountaineer. From Kathmandu, the journey continues to Pokhara, the gateway to Nepal's high mountains. Travelers may choose a scenic road journey, winding through river valleys, terraced hillsides, and rural villages, or a short domestic flight offering breathtaking aerial views. As the city fades behind, the landscape transforms, green hills rise higher, rivers cut deeper, and distant snow-capped peaks begin to appear. Pokhara arrives quietly, framed by lakes and mountains, a calm pause before the ascent into the Himalayas truly begins. Pokhara to Everest Base Camp route. From the calm lakes of Pokhara, the journey toward Everest accelerates. Trekkers travel onward to Lukla, the gateway to the Khumbu region and home to one of the world's most dangerous airstrips. Perched on a steep mountainside, the short runway allows no room for error. The flight itself offers breathtaking views of deep valleys and towering peaks, ending with a dramatic landing that signals the true beginning of the expedition. From Lukla, the trek begins on foot, descending gently to Phakding, a riverside village nestled among pine forests and suspension bridges. This first day sets the rhythm of the trail: steady walking, measured breathing, and gradual altitude gain. The path then climbs toward Namche Bazaar, the vibrant heart of the Khumbu region. Built into a mountainside, Namche serves as a vital acclimatization stop, offering rest, supplies, and stunning views of Everest on clear days. Continuing higher, truckers reach Tengboche Monastery, a spiritual center surrounded by snow-capped peaks. Prayer chants echo through the valley, reinforcing the sacred nature of the journey. Beyond Tengboche, the trail ascends through Dingboche, where the landscape becomes stark and windswept. Finally, the route leads to Lobouche, where air thins dramatically and the terrain turns harsh and icy just steps away from Everest Base Camp. Everest Base Camp, life at the edge. At an altitude of approximately 5,364 meters, Everest Base Camp sits at the very edge of human endurance. Surrounded by towering walls of ice and rock, it is the final outpost before climbers enter the most dangerous sections of the mountain. Here, the air holds barely half the oxygen found at sea level, and every movement requires deliberate effort. The purpose of Everest Base Camp is not rest, but preparation. It serves as a logistical and strategic hub where climbers and Sherpas organize their ascent, study conditions, and wait for a narrow window of opportunity to move higher. For weeks, sometimes months, this temporary city of tents becomes home. Daily life at base camp follows a disciplined routine. Sherpas, whose experience and strength are vital to every expedition, move constantly, fixing ropes, carrying loads, and preparing routes through the Khumbu Icefall. Climbers focus on recovery, hydration, and monitoring their physical condition. Simple tasks such as eating, melting snow for water, or stepping outside a tent become exhausting at this altitude. Several key activities define life at base camp. Acclimatization hikes are undertaken regularly, allowing the body to adapt gradually to extreme elevation. Teams attend detailed icefall briefings, where risks and timing through the unstable glacier are carefully discussed. Equipment testing is constant. Oxygen systems, masks, radios, and cold weather gear must function flawlessly. At the same time, climbers rely on frequent weather updates, studying wind speeds and storm patterns that determine whether progress is possible or retreat is necessary. Everest Base Camp is a place of anticipation and restraint. Beyond this point, mistakes become fatal and patience becomes the most important skill of all. Journey beyond Base Camp to summit. An overview. Beyond Everest Base Camp, the ascent toward the summit is divided into 4 high-altitude camps, identified as Camp 1 through Camp 4. Each camp serves a specific strategic purpose in the climb, marking a gradual progression into increasingly hostile and oxygen-deprived environments. These camps are not places of comfort, but carefully positioned lifelines that allow climbers to acclimatize, rest briefly, and prepare for the next phase of ascent. In this section, we take viewers step by step through each camp, exploring its location, altitude, challenges, and role in the overall expedition strategy. From the unstable glaciers of the Khumbu Icefall to the deadly thin air of the South Col, each camp represents a critical threshold where risk intensifies and margins for error disappear. Understanding these camps is essential to understanding what it truly takes to climb Mount Everest. Camp 1. The Khumbu Icefall. Camp I lies beyond one of the most dangerous sections of Mount Everest, the Khumbu Icefall. This constantly shifting glacier is a chaotic maze of towering ice blocks, deep crevasses, and unstable seracs that can collapse without warning. The icefall is never still. It moves several feet each day, reshaping routes overnight. To cross it, climbers rely on aluminum ladders suspended over crevasses that plunge hundreds of feet into darkness. Every step demands balance, concentration, and trust in equipment and fixed ropes. There is no safe time here, only calculated risk. Movement through the icefall is often done before dawn, when colder temperatures slow the ice's movement. Camp I offers brief relief, but its true purpose is transition. It marks the point where the mountain's dangers become constant and unavoidable. Camp 2, the Western Khum. Camp 2 is located in the Western Khum, a broad, glacial valley surrounded by towering peaks. Known as the Valley of Silence, it is eerily calm, sheltered from strong winds by Everest, Lhotse, and Nuptse. The stillness, however, is deceptive. Sunlight reflects intensely off the surrounding ice walls, creating a heat paradox. Despite freezing air temperatures, climbers can experience extreme heat during the day, leading to dehydration, sunburn, and exhaustion. The glare is relentless, and the thin air magnifies every movement. Camp 2 functions as a primary acclimatization base for higher climbs. Teams spend extended periods here resting, eating, and preparing for rotations above. It is a place of recovery, but also one where physical strain quietly accumulates. Camp 3, the Lhotse Face. Camp 3 is carved directly into the Lhotse Face, a steep wall of hard blue ice rising sharply toward the sky. This section of the mountain is technical and unforgiving. Climbers ascend using fixed ropes, front-pointing crampons, into near-vertical ice slopes. There's no natural shelter here. Tents are secured to narrow ledges hacked from ice, exposed to wind and extreme cold. A single slip without proper attachment can be fatal. Every movement is slow, deliberate, and exhausting. At this altitude, oxygen levels are dangerously low, and recovery becomes difficult. Camp 3 is not a place to linger. Its role is purely strategic, a staging point that pushes the body closer to its limits before entering the most hostile zone on Earth. Camp 4, the South Col. Camp 4 sits at the South Col, at an altitude of around 7,900 meters within the notorious death zone. Here, the human body begins to deteriorate. Oxygen levels drop to 1/3 of sea level concentration, making supplemental oxygen essential for survival. This camp is exposed, barren, and brutally cold. Winds roar across the col, and temperatures can plunge far below -40 degrees Celsius. Sleep is shallow, appetite disappears, and every task feels monumental. Camp 4 exists for one reason only: to launch the summit attempt. Climbers spend as little time here as possible, waiting for a narrow weather window before making their final push toward the top of the world. Beyond this point, there is no margin for error. Aerial views of Everest and valleys. Seen from the air, Mount Everest reveals a scale impossible to comprehend from the ground. Rising above every surrounding peak, the summit stands like a frozen monument at the center of the Himalayas, isolated, immense, and commanding. 360-degree aerial shots capture the full geography of the mountain, exposing razor-sharp ridgelines, hanging glaciers, and the immense vertical drops that define the highest place on Earth. From above, the summit ridge appears impossibly narrow. On one side, Nepal falls away into vast valleys. On the other, the Tibetan plateau stretches toward the horizon. The curvature of the Earth becomes visible at this altitude, reinforcing how far Everest rises above the rest of the world. Below the peak, valleys drift in and out of cloud cover, creating a constantly shifting landscape. Thick clouds pour through passes like slow-moving oceans, briefly revealing villages, rivers, and trekking routes before swallowing them again. From the air, the scale of human presence becomes almost invisible: tiny trails etched into a landscape shaped entirely by nature. As daylight fades, golden hour transforms the snow ridges. Sunlight ignites the ice in shades of amber, crimson, and soft blue. Shadows stretch across glaciers, carving depth into the mountain's surface and revealing textures hidden during harsher light. Each ridge glows briefly before slipping back into cold darkness. These aerial perspectives do more than offer beauty, they provide understanding. They show how Everest dominates the Himalayan chain, how valleys funnel weather and wind, and how fragile life is at these altitudes. From above, Everest is not just a mountain. It is a world unto itself, silent, powerful, and endlessly humbling. Environmental and ethical responsibility. Mount Everest stands as a symbol of human ambition, but it is also a fragile environment under increasing threat. The effects of climate change are no longer distant or theoretical here. They are visible on the mountain itself. Rising global temperatures have accelerated ice loss across the Himalayas, altering weather patterns and destabilizing terrain that climbers once considered predictable. One of the most alarming consequences is the melting of glaciers. Glaciers that feed major Asian river systems are retreating at unprecedented rates. On Everest, this melting has made routes more dangerous, increasing the risk of avalanches and exposing crevasses that were once sealed by ice. The Khumbu Icefall, already one of the most hazardous sections of the climb, has become increasingly unstable as warming temperatures speed up ice movement. Human activity has also left its mark. For decades, Everest was treated as a frontier without consequence. Discarded oxygen cylinders, damaged tents, and other debris accumulated along popular routes, earning the mountain the troubling reputation of being the world's highest dumping ground. In response, waste management initiatives have become a critical part of modern expeditions. Strict regulations now require climbers to bring back their waste, including human waste, used equipment, and empty oxygen bottles. Cleanup campaigns led by local organizations and Sherpa teams have removed tons of trash from the mountain, restoring parts of Everest to their natural state. Protecting Everest is not just an environmental responsibility, it is an ethical one. Respect for the mountain ensures that future generations will experience it not as a symbol of exploitation, but as a place of awe, balance, and responsibility. Why Everest matters. Mount Everest is often described as a destination, a record, or a challenge to be conquered. But after understanding its scale, its danger, and its history, a deeper truth emerges. Everest is not defined by the people who reach its summit. It is defined by what it demands from those who try. Everest represents the eternal tension between human ambition and nature. It draws people with the promise of achievement, yet reminds them often brutally that nature sets the limits. Strength, technology, and experience can help, but they never guarantee success. On Everest, humility matters more than pride. The mountain also teaches the importance of respect. For local communities, Everest is sacred. It is a living presence, not a trophy. Every step taken on its slopes carries responsibility to the environment, to the people who make these journeys possible, and to the mountain itself. Respecting Everest means knowing when to move forward and when to turn back. So who is Everest really for? It is not just for climbers chasing summits or headlines. Everest belongs to the Sherpas who know its moods, to the valleys that sustain life below, and to the future generations who deserve to inherit an unspoiled mountain. It is for those who understand that the true achievement is not standing on the top, but returning safely, having learned something about patience, restraint, and respect. Everest matters because it shows us who we are when comfort disappears. And more importantly, it shows us who we choose to become.